Coco, animated film from Pixar Studios, yet another animated movie in recent memory that explores different cultures. We had Brave, taking place in medieval Scotland, Moana was set in Polynesia, and now Coco is deeply rooted in Mexican culture and traditions. Previously, those ventures have worked wonderfully, and I'm pleased to say this film doesn't disappoint either. We open with exposition from the main protagonist of the film, a boy named Miguel. He's one of the youngest descendants of the Rivera family, a family atypical because of their distaste for music. That goes all the way back to Miguel's great great grandmother, or rather great great grandparents. The grandfather left the family to pursue his music career, never to return, and so his estranged wife was so mad that she banned all music around the household, and that ban is still in place several generations later. Miguel hates it because his biggest idol in the world was Ernesto de la Cruz, a famous musician that was born in the same little town and went on to become hugely popular in Mexico before his untimely death. Miguel secretly practices singing and playing the guitar and intends to take part in an upcoming competition during Dia de Muertos, the Day of the Dead. However, due to some events, which I won't spoil, and the fact that on this day the line between the world of the living and the one of the dead is blurred, Miguel accidentally gets cursed. He finds himself in the land of the dead, and with the help of a hustler named Hector, he wants to find Ernesto, get his blessing to become a musician as well, and then thanks to that blessing be able to return to his world before that becomes impossible at dawn. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the most obvious one, which is how Coco embraces the culture and the visuals of all the Mexican traditions related to Dia de Muertos. You would think that having most of the characters in the film be skeletons, essentially, in the afterlife, would be dull and dreary, but it's actually lush with color and life. The clothes and the locations and special effects are just gorgeously alive with all the colors of the rainbow, and the aesthetics of the entire film are heavily inspired by the real world traditions and celebrations. I found this dip into the Mexican culture completely engrossing, and at some points, maybe even overwhelming, but in a good way. I was in awe at the visual design of Coco. The Land of the Dead with buildings on hills and almost stacked on top of one another, the small streets between them, the plazas filled with music and celebration. It is just breathtaking to look at, and it pulls you right into the world of the film. In terms of the story, I think it's also very fresh and original, and it manages to, on the one hand, keep things interesting by going in unexpected directions at times, but also at the same time feel very natural and easy to follow, because all the plot points flow pretty organically from one another. It is this wonderful adventure that will take Miguel and Hector, and the audience by extension, through a number of places and set pieces and events, and never feel boring or forced or artificially dragged out or sped up. The pacing is excellent. It's just a good, pleasant watch. And then I mentioned that the movie manages to go in unexpected directions. There is actually one key plot twist, so to speak, which at one point you can begin to guess and predict, but that's not because you would expect it from this type of story, but because the movie very cleverly leaves you breadcrumbs to go on. There are clues which, if you're paying attention, you will pick up on and realize what's coming. However, even if you do, and you do have this light bulb moment where you know where the film is heading and what the climax is going to be, it doesn't really matter because the emotional weight of that climax is so great that you'll still get crushed. During the last 20 minutes or so, I started getting teary-eyed during like 5 different scenes, and then by the climax, I was a sobbing mess. It's so well done and so heartfelt and bittersweet and moving. I just melted completely. Even thinking about it now, 2 days after, I still get emotional. And that to me is Coco's greatest success. It manages to be this amazing adventure film for most of its runtime, whilst quietly setting the pieces for an emotional hit. And then for the finale, it just reveals it all. It flips the switch, reveals that this is what we're actually going for, and you can start crying now. And there's no way to resist because it just works. So I have to say, I'm floored by the film, because when you think about it, cinema is an art form, and an art form should move people, should elicit an emotional response. Coco does that, and it does it in such a masterful fashion. I mean, I loved it.